Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. Elizabeth never thought a single choice could ripple through her life like a storm. She had always been cautious, careful, the kind of person who measured her every move. But something inside her had shifted during the last months of her relationship with James. They had been together for almost 6 years, and while he loved her steadily, predictably, she felt herself craving more. Not necessarily someone else, but a taste of what the world beyond their cozy apartment could offer. A freedom she had never dared to explore. It started innocently enough. Coffee with old friends, late-night conversations that weren't supposed to mean anything, texts that carried a thrill she hadn't felt in years. Each time she returned to James, she carried that small spark of guilt, but she also carried excitement. She told herself it wasn't cheating. It was exploration. And James, loyal as ever, never questioned her late nights or distracted glances at her phone. Then came the evening she had promised herself would be harmless. A new bar in the city had opened, and Elizabeth found herself laughing louder than she had in months. Conversations flowed, strangers became temporary companions, and for the first time in years, she felt untethered. It was intoxicating. She had to remind herself, mid-laughter, that she had a life waiting for her at home. But let's be honest, haven't we all wondered what life feels like on the other side? If this story resonates, please hit the like button to support content that speaks to real emotions. By the time she walked home, the sky was a deep indigo, and the city felt impossibly vast. James greeted her with a quiet smile, unaware of the chaos that had filled her evening. They talked about mundane things, grocery lists, work deadlines, a neighbor's noisy dog. But Elizabeth noticed how he looked at her, soft and trusting. She felt a pang of something she hadn't anticipated. Guilt layered with a strange thrill. She wanted to confess everything, to spill the excitement and the fear at once. But she couldn't. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments. Elizabeth became a master of compartmentalization. Work days ended, evenings stretched, and her secret life became an invisible companion in the corner of her mind. James remained blissfully unaware, proposing little weekend getaways and simple gestures of love that, instead of grounding her, reminded her of the choice she had made to drift. One Saturday morning, Elizabeth's phone buzzed with a message that made her stomach twist. James had been invited to his colleague's wedding next month. The bride was someone he had mentioned casually before, someone he had known in college. A small part of Elizabeth felt relief. The wedding was still weeks away. Another part of her felt panic. The thought of James committing fully, even in a social setting, made the boundaries of her secret feel suddenly precarious. Comment below what you would do if you were in her shoes. Let's start a real discussion about choices and consequences. That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She replayed every moment of her clandestine explorations. The laughter, the thrill, the fleeting connections that meant nothing yet felt like everything. She realized she had underestimated the emotional cost of wanting more. Wanting other people wasn't just about freedom. It was about the inevitable collision with reality. And reality, as she was learning, had a way of striking when least expected. The morning brought a text from James, casually mentioning the wedding plans again, and suddenly, the weight of her decisions felt crushing. She thought about telling him the truth, about confessing the nights she had wandered emotionally, if not physically. But as her fingers hovered over the keyboard, she hesitated. Could honesty survive the shock? Or would it shatter everything they had built? Type the word honesty in the comments if you think confessing would change the outcome. Let's see what the audience believes. Elizabeth spent the day in quiet reflection, avoiding James while maintaining a facade of normalcy. She noticed the small things. The way he folded his shirt sleeves before dinner, the way he hummed under his breath while making tea, the familiarity of his laughter. Each detail reminded her of what she risked losing. That night, as she scrolled through memories on her phone, photos of trips, small videos of shared moments, her chest tightened. She understood, finally, that exploring the world outside of James's love wasn't harmless. It came with consequences she hadn't allowed herself to fully imagine. A week later, Elizabeth attended a gathering where she ran into someone from her secret nights out. Seeing him, laughing, completely detached from the reality she had at home, was a mirror of the split life she was living. Share this story with someone who needs to hear how choices shape destiny, sometimes in ways we never anticipate. The thrill of the encounter faded as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by an unshakable sense of dread. The wedding announcement lingered like a shadow she could no longer ignore. By the time she returned home, Elizabeth was exhausted, not from the outings, not from the laughter, but from the internal reckoning. James sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, unaware of the storm she carried inside her. She knew the time would come when the truth could no longer be postponed. The question wasn't if James would find out. It was how he would find out, and whether the love she had jeopardized would survive the revelation. As she prepared for bed, her mind replayed every detail, every moment, every choice that led her here. And for the first time, Elizabeth realized that consequences weren't abstract. They were imminent, and they were personal. Comment your thoughts. Should Elizabeth reveal everything to James now, or wait for the perfect moment? Let's discuss the emotional stakes here. The morning of James's colleague's wedding arrived like a sharp reminder of the ticking clock Elizabeth had been ignoring. She watched him prepare with his usual care, adjusting his tie, checking his reflection, humming softly as if the world had no weight at all. Elizabeth's heart ached, not from love alone, but from the awareness that her choices had placed her on the precipice of irrevocable consequences. She had wanted freedom, curiosity, the taste of what life beyond James offered. But now, reality was closing like a storm cloud, and there was no escaping the downpour. They drove to the venue in silence, each lost in thought. James seemed unaware of her internal turmoil, joking lightly about the seating arrangement and asking if she preferred red or white wine at dinner. Elizabeth smiled faintly, the gesture hollow, her mind replaying every secret interaction, every stolen thrill that had led her here. Each laugh shared with strangers now felt like a betrayal painted in slow, deliberate strokes. If you're captivated by this emotional tension, don't forget to like this video to keep stories like this reaching you and others who resonate with these feelings. The wedding itself was dazzling, a blur of white dresses, polished shoes, and the hum of polite conversation. Elizabeth kept her distance, allowing James to mingle with colleagues while she nursed her anxiety at the edge of the room. Watching him interact, so open, so engaged, so genuinely affectionate, made her chest tighten with a mix of longing and guilt. She realized, in the most visceral way, that her desire to see other people had never diminished what James had given her: patience, trust, unwavering attention. And now, she was facing a confrontation not with strangers, but with herself. During the reception, she caught snippets of conversations that brought the truth into sharp relief. Friends whispered about love, commitment, and the stability James embodied. One comment, casual and almost careless, sliced through her. "It's rare to find someone who truly values you." The words echoed, reminding Elizabeth that the life she had taken for granted was being celebrated by others, even as she had drifted emotionally elsewhere. Comment below with one word that describes Elizabeth's dilemma. Let's explore the complexity of human emotions together. Then came the moment that would define everything. James, unaware of the tension inside Elizabeth, stepped onto the small stage for a toast. His voice was steady, genuine, reflecting admiration for the couple, but carrying an undertone that only Elizabeth could perceive, a subtle reminder of the unwavering loyalty he had shown her for years. Watching him speak, Elizabeth felt the magnitude of what she risked losing. Her curiosity, her desire to explore, had led her here, to a moment where love, respect, and patience confronted her own indecision and fear. Share this story with someone who needs to understand the weight of their choices and relationships. It's a story that resonates far beyond just one couple. Later that evening, as the celebrations wound down and guests began to depart, Elizabeth found herself alone in a quiet hallway. Her phone buzzed, a message from a name she hadn't expected. One of her secret companions, casual, playful, unaware of the storm she carried. The message was innocent in tone, but charged with a reminder of the life she had flirted with. And in that split second, Elizabeth understood something fundamental. The thrill of curiosity could never match the depth of the connection she had ignored. Returning to James, who was laughing with a friend near the exit, Elizabeth's mind raced. She could confess everything now, risk shattering the trust, or she could remain silent, letting the wedding, the choices, and the lessons linger as an unspoken weight. Finally, she took a deep breath, the kind that carries resolve, and approached him. James turned, sensing something, and met her eyes. It was in that look that Elizabeth understood. Honesty, however frightening, was the only path left to reclaim clarity. Comment what you would say if you were Elizabeth. Engage in a meaningful discussion about choice, consequences, and human emotion. She spoke then, slowly, deliberately. Confession flowed not in a torrent, but in a measured stream. The night she had sought excitement. The feelings she couldn't ignore. The lessons learned too late. James listened, and Elizabeth noted the subtle shifts in his expression. Shock, disappointment, and finally, the calm clarity of someone who had faced betrayal, yet remained composed. In that moment, Elizabeth realized the magnitude of her own mistakes and emotional resilience James possessed. The resolution came not in dramatic confrontation, but in quiet understanding. They discussed boundaries, forgiveness, and the fragile nature of trust. Elizabeth knew the path forward would be difficult, that healing required time and patience, and that some moments could never be undone. But she also recognized the profound value of honesty, respect, and shared accountability in love. Comment your thoughts, and subscribe if you believe stories like this teach us the true meaning of consequences and emotional awareness. As they left the venue, the night air crisp and expectant, Elizabeth felt the weight of lessons learned. She had desired freedom, but freedom without responsibility had consequences she could no longer ignore. James, steady and patient, offered a reminder that love, real, enduring love, requires trust, respect, and an unwavering commitment to truth. And in that quiet conclusion, Elizabeth finally understood the depth of what she had risked, the stakes of her choices, and the possibility of redemption through honesty.